Welcome back, everybody, to the Just Talk Hoops podcast. Hope you guys all had a good week, or as good as you could have. It was a rough week for a lot of people. I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff because this is just a basketball podcast. Where we keep it's Just Talk Hoops, right? So we keep it just solely, basketball related. But yeah, stay safe out there, people. Anyway, on to the basketball stuff. Just had to say that real quick, but hope you guys did have as good of a week as you could have. Last week we were doing some like player creation stuff. That was pretty fun. Talked about the Cam Thomas situation, which was less fun. But this week it's kind of a history thing today. Kind of looking back at some of the awards history specifically. So we're going to be looking at, for example, the Steve Nash MVPs, seeing whether he really deserved those, which a lot of people say he didn't. We're going to look at the Carmelo Anthony, LeBron, Braun winning Rookie of the Year. And then we're going to look at Braun not winning Defensive Player of the Year in 2013, Marc Gasol winning instead, despite the fact that he made all defensive second team. We're going to look at all those. I'm going to give a case for each side, and then we're just going to, I'm going to say which one I think is the better case and who I think had a better case for that. We're also going to talk about the comments that Adam Silver made. I'm going to start off with that, but wearing the Alonzo Mourning Hornets jersey today. I was looking around for a jersey that fit the episode, but couldn't really find anything because I don't have a Marc Gasol jersey. I don't have a Steve Nash jersey, although that's one that's on my list. I don't have a LeBron jersey, believe it or not. I like the obscure, and Alonzo Mourning is not obscure. I don't want to disrespect Alonzo Mourning. He's, that's one of the better defenders of all time. Great player. Anyway, we're going to start off with the comments about Adam Silver. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, right, Adam Silver, commissioner of the NBA, he was, he's come under a lot of heat for there being so many different streaming services that fans have to get to watch the games, right? They want to watch their favorite teams, they want to watch other teams, and they can't because there's just so many different streaming services. I've noticed it myself. Like, yes, I have League Pass, but then it's like, well, these games are only on national TV, and these games are only on Amazon Prime, and it's like it gets ridiculous. It gets absolutely ridiculous. And I'm someone who loves to watch basketball, but if you're gonna make it difficult for me to watch basketball, I'm not gonna watch it. Like I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna do it because I can't. You're making it impossible for me to watch basketball, which I do not appreciate. And I've never really spoken bad about Adam Silver as a commissioner before because I don't think he's a terrible commissioner. I think he's experimented a good bit in the past few years, and I don't hate that. I do wish that he would add some expansion teams. But like the experimentation with the in-season tournament, I think that was a great success. I think that, you look at the play-in, I think that's a little more controversial. I don't know how much people love it, but he's at least experimenting. He's trying stuff, right? And I know All-Star Weekend, that experimentation hasn't really worked, but at least it hasn't been like, oh, we're not going to change anything at all. And like he tried to stop load management with, making players play 65 games and to be eligible to win awards. He tried to stop some of that stuff. He's tried to stop flopping. Like he's tried to institute stuff or instate stuff. And a lot of it, I think I've been a fan of. But one thing that I'm not a fan of is him not making, not making the NBA games easily accessible to fans. And then when people come to him with complaints about it, he says, "Well, just watch the highlights. The NBA is a highlight sport." What is that supposed to mean? I think that's a ridiculous stance to take on your sports league, right? Like it's his sports league. He's supposed to be running. He's supposed to make it so that everyone wants to watch the games. Why are you saying, "Oh, well, it's a highlight sport"? It's not. It's not. It's not a highlight sport because you can't truly get the full experience of watching basketball by just watching. You hear the best 10 plays from last night. That doesn't mean you watch the game. That doesn't help you see, okay, well, here are some of the like less well-known players, or here's how this rookie's doing, or here's how this guy's doing. Or like, so you want players to just watch the games and then give you all-star votes? Like, if they're not watching the game, like you need to actively watch it. Highlights is not the same thing as actively watching. It's completely different. And that's why it annoys me when people say like, when they complain about the current state of the NBA, and there are things you can complain about, sure, like the fact that you can't watch it anywhere, but then sometimes it's like, well, there's just no game plan, there's no team play anymore. And I'm like, well, that's because people only watch the highlights. Like if you watch a team, actually, you'll see the amount of teamwork that actually goes into it. For like, watch a team like the Nuggets or the Pacers where they play team basketball, really good team basketball, and like, or they say defense is dead, and it's like, watch the Thunder. Like it's just. But if you can't watch a full game, you will never know that. And so it's disappointing to me that the commissioner of the NBA, the guy who should be wanting everyone to watch and should be the main advocate for, okay, let's get it so that fans can watch it, is saying it's a highlight sport. It's disgusting to me. And it makes me feel like he cares more about the money than the sport, which I think is true. And that's not how like the person in charge of the NBA, the person who's the commissioner of the NBA, should not be someone who cares about the money. They should be someone who cares about the sport. They should be someone who just loves the sport. Like me. I should be the commissioner. I would make it so that everyone can watch it. From Just Talk Hoops to commissioner of the NBA, I don't think that's a ridiculous career path. Just jump right through. I'll just skip college. Just straight through to commissioner of the NBA. That doesn't seem ridiculous to me. I think that's pretty fair. You don't have to pay me that much. A little bit. I'll take a little money, but you don't got to pay me that much. I just want to make the sport. I just want to be able to watch basketball. That's it. Anyway, that was my little rant about that. I just felt like I had to say something about that because it pissed me off. But we're going to go on to our award races debate, right? So obviously a big reason for that, a big reason, well, maybe not obviously, but a big reason for why I'm doing this is because there's been so much controversy over the past few years about who the MVP should be, right? This year it was Shea versus Jokic, and people were saying, oh, Jokic got robbed. Shea's not a real MVP. He's just flopping, which I think, listen, if you want to make the case that Jokic should have won MVP, that's fine by me, because I think Nikola Jokic is the best MVP in the world, or is the best player in the world, right? So if that was what the MVP award was based on, then yeah, he'd win it. But I think when you look at the season that the Thunder had as a team, and then you look at the precedent set by the MVP award, every time a team has a great generational season like the Thunder just had, and I don't want to hear arguments that it's not generational, they just had one of the best defensive seasons of all time while giving a really good offense with a very, very young team, and they went to the finals and won the finals, right? They did an incredible job in the playoffs. I think that it is absolutely a generational season. When you look back, throughout history, you look back and you look at this team, you can be like, man, that team was something special. Right, and Shea was the leader of that. Now, is it just him in OKC? No, but it's not just Jokic in Denver either. It's not like he has no help at all. And I do agree that Shea had a better supporting cast, but I don't think we can, shame him for that and give Jokic extra points. And I love Jokic, right? I live in Denver. I love Nikola Jokic. I think he is one of the most entertaining players to watch. I think he's one of the best players we've ever seen with a basketball. But I don't think that Shea robbed him of any MVP award. You can make the case, but I've already said on this channel, I said last year before Shea won the award that I thought that he was the rightful deserving MVP because of the precedent set by the MVP award. A couple of years before that, there'd been the controversy once again about Joel Embiid versus Nikola Jokic. And I wasn't terribly mad about Embiid winning it that year either. I think Embiid, at his peak during those years, was one of the most dominant scorers that the league has ever seen, right? And when you look at the next year, how until he got injured, he was on an MVP level trajectory again, I just think he was one of the best players in the world. So I'm not mad at him winning that. And he also was extremely, he fit the other boxes of the MVP award, right? I think, could Jokic have won it? Yeah, but the fact is that not only the precedent that the MVP award is set, but also just voter fatigue is an aspect which I don't think it should be, but it is. It's a reality of the situation that voter fatigue is part of award voting, right? So when you look at the fact that you don't often see guys win MVPs every year that they could have won the MVP. And I don't think it should be a thing, but it is, right? And that's going to be part of our discussions about those other awards today. So we're going to talk about, like I said, the Nash MVPs, the Gasol DPOY, and then the Braun Melo Rookie of the Year. We'll start with the Steve Nash MVPs, right? So those are probably the most debated awards ever, right? The people hate that Steve Nash got, like, it's not just like, oh well, I'm surprised. It's like they hate it because there's a lot of Kobe fans who are really, really insistent that Steve Nash robbed Kobe of the MVP in 2006. So we're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to start with 2005. So Kobe wasn't in the race. This was, to me, a two-person race, right? You've got Steve Nash on one side, and then you've got Shaquille O'Neal on the other side, this was his first year in Miami. So first year in Miami, he's fresh off of getting bounced in the finals, but he's also fresh off of one of the best, like 5-year peaks that we've seen from a player, right? Shaquille O'Neal, one of the most dominant players of all time. Shaq was ridiculous. And I think coming into 2005, it's like, well, he's in a new situation, and he still put up really good numbers, right? He put up around a 23-point double-double, I want to say. I'll pull up the stats just so I'm not lying while I'm doing this debate. But the case for Shaquille O'Neal is he put up, really good stats, not anything that'll blow you out of the water, but really, really solid stats on a really, really solid team. That team won 59 games. They were first in their division. I don't know exactly what they were in terms of let me check. They were number one in the whole league, or not the whole league, but in the Eastern Conference. They had the 6th best defense and the 5th best offense in the league. They were absolutely incredible. Shaquille O'Neal played 73 games that year. He averaged 23, 10, 3 assists, 2 blocks, and ended the year in DPOY voting. He finished second in MVP voting, obviously, and then he was an All-Star NBA first team. He also led the league in field goal percentage with 60%, which was the same as his 2-point percentage because he didn't attempt a single 3 all year. He was dominant, right? It's Shaquille O'Neal. He's always going to be dominant. So if you're making a case for Shaq, you can say, well, he averaged more points per game than Nash on a really, really good team, a team that ended up going all the way to the conference finals. Now, I know that's not part of the debate for a regular season award, but it is worth noting. He was great defensively, put up great defensive stats, was really good on the glass, did a lot of things at the age of 32, by the way, where he was just, he played a lot of games that season. He was just really good on a really good team. Okay, that's a great case. The case against that, to me, would, no, I'll just go with the Steve Nash case. I don't want to make a case against Shaq yet. So Steve Nash, the difference to me is Nash led his team. They were the best offense in the league. They were fastest pace in the league. We know how those Suns played, right? The super, super fast-paced Suns. They were offensive machine. Their defense was nowhere near as good, which is kind of worth noting because Nash is not a great defender, right? Obviously not. And so that the fact that defense, it wasn't there was elite defensive players surrounding him. The fact that they had below a middle half of the league defense, but were so good at offense that they were able to win 62 games, which made them first in the entire NBA. That's what I think a lot of Nash's value comes from. Now, Nash was 4th in his league or not 4th in the league. 4th on his team in points per game. He only averaged 15.5 points per game. Now, you're wondering, how can the MVP be that low in terms of points per game on their own team and still win? Well, he did lead the league in assists per game with 11.5. And a lot of the reason that those other guys, Amari Stoudemire, Sean Marion, and Joe Johnson, were above Nash in points per game was because of Steve Nash. Right, Amari Stoudemire ended up being a 2nd-team All-NBA player. Sean Marion was a 3rd-team All-NBA member. I guarantee you, those guys do not look as good on the offensive end without Steve Nash. Without him to run that system, they do not perform as well because Steve Nash is one of the best offensive engines of all time. So despite the fact that he's a small guard, despite the fact that he doesn't play a ton of defense, despite the fact that he doesn't score in high volume, although it's at very high efficiency because he was at 50, 40, and about 89% from the free throw line, which is incredible efficiency for a smaller guard. The fact that he's able despite those disadvantages, to lead the best offense in the league, and it's really only the best offense in the league because of him. They went to the conference finals. They were in the best team in the league that year, in the regular season at least. They did end up losing to the Spurs. I believe they were, like they ended up losing to the Spurs in the Western Conference Final. Or although is this the year that Stoudemire? No, this isn't the year. This isn't. There was one year where didn't Stoudemire miss time? Like, I can't remember exactly what the situation was. I might be misremembering. But the fact that Nash led that, to me, is so valuable. And I know that you could say, well, Shaq led the Heat, but Dwayne Wade averaged more points per game than Shaq. While Shaq is not a pass-first player, unlike Nash, Shaq was a more, scoring-centric player. I think that you could argue that Shaq wasn't totally the leader of his team. You can't make that argument with Nash. Shaq still put up incredible numbers. And if you look at like advanced stats and stuff like that, for this argument, it doesn't really change much. They've got pretty similar win shares, VORP, stuff like that. So it doesn't make a ton of difference. But Steve Nash was just such a good leader and so efficient of a leader that I just don't think I can say, okay, well, just take it away. I think that Steve Nash deserved that MVP award. I honestly do, at least in 2005. In 2006, you get into a different debate, right? Shaq is no longer one of the front runners in this debate, and now we don't have just two guys debating or competing. We've got three guys who I think have got really, really solid cases for why they should have been the MVP that year. We're going to start, we're going to do the loser last, or the winner last in all three scenarios. So the two guys that ended up also being in debates, one of them is Kobe Bryant, the other one is LeBron James. Now, Kobe has the benefit that he's got a great statistical season that year. So if you look at him in that year, let me check exactly the stats. So I believe this was the year one of the years that he led the league in scoring. Yeah, he did. So 35 points per game that year, which is nuts, absolutely insane. The Lakers, the thing that it could be a bit of an issue for Kobe is they were 45 and 37. They were third in their own division, and they were seventh in the Western Conference. Now I understand that the Western Conference was extremely competitive at that time, and when you look at the people around Kobe, it's not great, right? Lamar Odom, Smush Parker were the next two leading scorers on that team. And it was a lot of Kobe Bryant. It was a lot of Kobe Bryant being the best player on that team by far. Plus, it wasn't just 35, right? He's also averaging 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and almost 2 steals, which are incredible statistical numbers. He was absolutely incredible statistically. And he, efficiency-wise, it's not great. 45% from the field, 30 we'll round up for him. We'll give him 35% from 3. He attempted and made the most field goals per game. It's not terrible efficiency. It's not going to blow you out of the water, but it's not terrible. And he was shooting at such a high volume without many other people taking the gravity off of him that I don't think you can really fault him for not having great efficiency, because when you're looking at the people around him, it's pretty much it's going to be him or it's going to be no one else. So I think that it's very valuable to him, or to that team, that he was able to score at such a high volume, which is the only reason they made the playoffs. So Kobe's got a great case this year. I think that you could argue this might be the best year of Kobe Bryant. I think you could argue that this is his peak. But I think you can also look at a guy like, the LeBron, and you can make a great case for him. Let's pull up his stats real quick. Now, LeBron, I know he had the best advanced statistical season that year, right? He led, let's find it real quick. He led this is his 3rd season in the NBA, by the way, which is insane. Led the whole league in box plus minus and VORP, which he led value over replacement player. I don't know exactly how it's calculated. Let's look at it. Box score estimate of the points per 100 team possessions that a player contributed above a replacement level player translated to the average team and prorated to an 82-game season. Complicated stuff. But he led that every year from 2006 to 2013. And then he led it again in 2018. So pretty much like if you didn't have LeBron in the game, whoever was replacing him was not as good by a long shot. Now, the Cavs that year, they were, let me see. He's only 21 years old at this point. But they were a 50-win team, straight 50-win team. They ended up being the fourth in the East with, honestly, another roster like Kobe's that should not have been as good as it was. It was LeBron, Ronald Murray, Larry Hughes, and Big Z. Big Z is a very talented player. I don't want to hate on Big Z. Larry Hughes was nice too. But not a single other All-Star on that team, not a single other person who got an award on that team. LeBron averaged 31, 7, and 6 with a steal and a half and almost a block. Insane numbers, plus at a higher efficiency clip, slightly, in terms of just field goal percentage, not looking like true shooting or anything like that, which makes sense because he's just bigger. He's attacking the rim more than, Kobe attacks the rim a good bit, but LeBron, he's very downhill playing, and especially when you look at the fact that this was earlier in his career when that three-point jump shot hadn't quite come along yet. He was just shooting around 34% from three. LeBron, if you're an advanced stats person, he should have won this MVP. It just feels like those advanced stats are the best. If you're a box score person, it feels like Kobe Bryant should have won this MVP. I think LeBron is kind of in between Nash and Bryant, where his team was not as bad as Kobe's. Now, albeit the East was a little less competitive than the West, but his team didn't struggle quite as much as Kobe's. His stats still looked incredible, not quite as good as Kobe's, but better than Nash. Just if you're looking at how much did they put up. So LeBron's got an incredible case this year. I think that honestly, all three of these guys do. So now we're going to go to the Steve Nash case, and we're going to see whether he deserved this MVP award. I don't think that. I'll say right now, I don't think that he was really undeserving of an MVP award. I think it was more the other guys have a case to be more so. Right, so this year he's still not leading that team in points per game, although he did step it up. He went from 15.5 from last year to 18.8, which was second on the team because of the fact that Amari Stoudemire only played 3 games that year. Right, so Marion led the team in scoring, and then it was followed up by Nash, who averaged 18.8 while still leading the league in assists per game. And then defensive stats, rebounding stats don't really do much for me, but they also had most improved player Boris Diaw, by the way, which shout out to Boris Diaw, Spurs legend. But despite the fact that they're missing Amari Stoudemire, who, if you remember correctly, was NBA second team last year, or not last year, but the year before this in 2005, and led the team in scoring. So they lose him after only playing 3 games, and it's like, well, shoot, they're cooked, right? Except for the fact that Steve Nash still led this team to the second best offense in the league based off of offensive rating, still the fastest pace, obviously. Now, their defense was, still not great. But the fact that he was able to lead this team, despite the fact that Stoudemire was injured, and he was able to say, okay, we need more scoring because Stat is out. Sure, I can do that. And you know what? I'm still going to give that to you on 50, 40, 90 efficiency. That's insane efficiency. I don't think that people realize just how insane it is that a small guard like him, and Steph Curry has done this as well, Kyrie Irving, these other small guards, but these guys can be so efficient with it because he was such a smart player. He's just such an intelligent player, one of the smartest of all time, one of the best playmakers of all time. But the fact is he's able to step up his scoring load so much and just say, like a 3-point increase is nothing to scoff at. And while keeping that same efficiency and still being the best playmaker, the best passer in the league, and he's able to say, okay, we're still going to have a great offensive season, and then we're still going to go to the conference finals while beating Kobe Bryant on the way there, by the way, that's absolutely insane. And I think he should definitely get his flowers to that. But the question comes down to, is that enough for him to deserve the MVP over a guy who had incredible advanced stats, averaged 30 plus, and played elite defense, like did everything on the court? We've known LeBron can do that, and led their team to a top 4 seed in their conference. Or Kobe, who averaged 35, led the league in scoring, put up great statistical numbers, was great on the defensive side of the ball as well, just gave you great value on both sides, and carried what otherwise would have been a horrendous team to still making the playoffs. So I think this one comes down to, what do you value when you're voting for an award, right? If you're someone who looks at solely their impact on like how much worse would the team be without them, then actually that's not a good, because all 3 of these teams would be terrible without that player, I think. If you look solely at statistical, like how, like what do they put up every night? Who is the most deadly player who is going to cook your team every night on the box sheet? Then Kobe Bryant should win this award. Plus, he still gave you, I'm not acting like he's only good because of his stats. I'm not trying to act like it's only a good case because of that statistical advantage that he has over these other guys. No, he's got both great defense and great offense while giving you, he's giving you 35 a night, right? Like, he's absolutely insanely good at scoring. We know this about Kobe Bryant. If you're someone who values more well-roundedness and then advanced stats on top of that, then LeBron should win this for you. If you're someone that, you value the ability to adapt to your environment, you value the ability to have the best team of these 3, the ability to lead a great team to victory, then it goes to Steve Nash. Last year, in 2005, I would have given it to Steve Nash because of his leading of that Suns team. I think this year, it would just, I just think it would be very difficult for me as a voter to look at Kobe Bryant's case and say, the 7th best team in the West. I think it would be very difficult for me to look at that and say, yeah, MVP. I get that team's not good around him, and I understand that, but that's the same reason that I gave the award to Shea over Jokic this year. Now, obviously, I don't actually get an award vote, but that I would have, because I think the precedent of the MVP award states, well, there's not, it's shown that you not only have to be a great player, but you also have to be on a very, very successful team. So I think it would be very, very difficult for me to say, okay, we've got a guy who's the 7th seed while putting up the best stats. We've got a guy who's the 4th seed while putting up really good stats. And we've got a guy who is the 1st seed and is still putting, or the 2nd seed, sorry, the Suns were the 2nd seed that year, and is still putting up solid stats. It's difficult. I honestly, I don't know who I'd choose for that. I think the other day I was like, yeah, you know what? When I was planning for this video, I was like, I think I would give this to Kobe because of that. But now I'm thinking, I don't think I can do that. I think that Kobe, to me, has the worst case of the 3, which is, it's still an incredible case. And I think it might be a case where he's the best player of the 3, but just in an unfortunate circumstance that, it's the same thing with DPOY. You can't get DPOY if you're not a great defensive team. So I just think that I would have to take Kobe out of this discussion before the other 2. Between LeBron and Nash, I honestly don't know. I might, God, I don't know. It's an extremely difficult decision to make. LeBron's got an incredible case. He's got an incredible case. It's just, honestly, I think I could go either way here. Right now, my gut's telling me go LeBron, but part of me wonders if that's just because I've heard so much about Steve Nash not deserving that MVP award. You know what I mean? So I think I am going to go. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Drop it in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Hit me up, Just Talk Hoops on Instagram if you want to debate this further. I honestly have no idea which way to go with this. I'm going to just leave it at Nash right now because I don't think there's enough to overturn it. And like statistically, those other guys are so much better in terms of just the numbers they're putting up. But I'm someone who values winning a lot and values impact on winning a lot, and I think Nash has so much impact on winning. But LeBron and Kobe have both got such great cases. I might even lean LeBron here, honestly, just because I don't know. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. It like probably tomorrow I'll be like, oh, this is so easy as Jesus. Easily Steve Nash, or so easily LeBron James, or so easily Kobe Bryant. And it changes every day. 05, I do feel like it is Steve Nash's award. 06, I think you could go any of those three. I think we have to just recognize that the most valuable player doesn't necessarily mean best player. And we shouldn't just judge a year's best player based off of the most valuable player. That's what I've got to say about that. We're going to go... you know what's funny is all three of these awards talk about LeBron James. I didn't realize that when I was thinking of them, but I'm thinking of it now. Now we're going to go to the Rookie of the Year one, LeBron, and then I almost said Kobe. Carmelo Anthony, who we're debating for that Rookie of the Year. Now, obviously, that's one of the best rookie classes of all time, right? You've got not just those two guys, but also Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Darko Milicic. A lot of other great guys that I'm not confident about saying them because I'm worried that I'm going to be like Kyle Korver, and it's not. I think he is in that class. I'm like 95% sure he is. But on the off chance he isn't, I think he is. I feel like he is. Anyway, we've got LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo's drafted to the Nuggets. Obviously, he goes 4th overall? Or is it 3rd? It is 3rd. It's 3rd, yeah. So you went to the Nuggets with 3rd, then Wade went 4th. Wade went 4th to the Heat. That's right. Okay. LeBron obviously went 1st. Darko Milicic went 2nd, which is hilarious. So Melo put up 21 points per game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and a half a block, which incredibly impressive numbers for a rookie. Now, he also did average more turnovers than he did assists per game, which is kind of the most Melo thing ever. He put up 42% field goal efficiency or field goal shooting, 32% from 3. Effective field goal percentage was 45%. True shooting, let me go find it because I do feel like that is valuable in debating this, just because of the fact that Carmelo, like one of Carmelo's biggest weaknesses here is he's not incredibly efficient because he is a rookie. So it does often happen that the rookies aren't incredibly efficient, which makes sense. He was at 51% about. I'm rounding a lot of these numbers just because it's easier than giving the decimal points every time. About 51% true shooting, which I'm not incredibly knowledgeable about the true shooting, about the advanced statistics. But he had an incredible case this year, right? And I think if you're looking at just statistics, he averaged more points than LeBron. He came in, he had a really solid season. And, these numbers aren't quite as incredible as the last time just because of the fact that he was a rookie. But the Nuggets went from the last ranked offense in the league to the 8th best offense in the league. The 8th best, not the 8th worst, the 8th best offense in the league. And a big part of that is Carmelo Anthony. Now, is all of it Carmelo Anthony? No, it's not. But I do think he had a little more impact on that team in terms of like just, what he was doing for that team. Like, I don't think people recognize that as much, really. But LeBron also had a good bit of impact, seeing as the year before they won 17 total games, the Cavaliers. They were the second to worst offense in the league with the 24th ranked defense. Did they go up a ton? No, they did go up to the 22nd ranked offense in the league, which isn't great. and the 19th best defense. Not incredible. They did win 18 more games than they did the season before, a big part of which was LeBron James, who averaged just slightly less points per game than Carmelo. Carmelo averaged, I think, 21 flat, and LeBron was 20.9. He also was averaging 5 rebounds, 6 assists, steal and a half. He was getting MVP votes, which is not right. I don't know actually how many MVP votes that is. Let's check. He got 11 total points, which was nowhere near enough to, the winner that year, Kevin Garnett, shout out Kevin Garnett, had 1,219. So it's not particularly close, but it's, he was still there. Carmelo also got one. But, okay, let's think about it, right? Bron obviously went into the season with a lot more hype. I think Melo fans could make the argument. They're like, well, the only reason Bron won it was because he was called the chosen one going in. He's the kid from Akron who's now playing in Cleveland, right? It's just a great story. LeBron fans, you can be like, yeah, but also LeBron averaged better in every stat except for points. And listen, I'll also say LeBron's efficiency was horrendous. 29% from 3 on 2.7 attempts per game is ugly. It's a good thing he's worked on that. Now, were there a lot of other people who were doing a whole lot on the offensive end? Not really. But LeBron, I would still give this to LeBron. I would still give this award to LeBron James. I just think that he had a better statistical season. I think that he did about the same for his team. I think that I also don't think that the Rookie of the Year is a team award, right? The MVP, I put a lot of value into team success and impact on team success, not just team success, but impact on it. Because I think that's important. I think that it shows part of your value. Part of your value is to help your team win. And if your team isn't winning, I know sometimes it's difficult to say, well, he doesn't have the supporting cast around him. I know that sometimes is a good argument, but I don't think that the award of Rookie of the Year should be based off of that. Like the MVP should be, but the award of Rookie of the Year should not be, because it is solely they're going into a bad team no matter what. Like if you just looked at team record, you'd be like, yeah, well, the 30th pick who went to the champion was still really good. And no shit, really? I just think that it's difficult to say that the rookies should. It's like how people were saying, oh, well, Chet Holmgren had more of an impact on winning in his rookie year than Victor Wembanyama. And I'm like, yeah, but Victor Wembanyama is putting up the best shot blocking numbers in the NBA while also being elite at other aspects of the game. Are we seriously going to make any debate that Wemby shouldn't win? I just think it's ridiculous when people. And if they're actively losing their team games, then yeah, they get faulted for that. But LeBron and Carmelo were not actively losing their team games. I think that I would give this to LeBron. I just think he had a better season. Shout out to Melo. Melo was great. And I do think that sometimes people forget that he had almost as good of a season as LeBron James did in their rookie years. But now, obviously, LeBron James has had a slightly better career after that. But I mean, hey, shout out to LeBron James is all I'm gonna say. Like he seriously, shout out to LeBron James and to Melo. I don't know why I just said LeBron James, but shout out to both of them. They had a seriously great rookie year, both of them. Now the final LeBron award. It's a lot of talking about LeBron today. So far we've potentially given him an extra MVP, and I mean, I think 2011, you could make a great case for LeBron to win MVP that year. Voter fatigue, these aren't the only contentious awards in history. These are just the first 3 that I thought of when I was thinking of this idea for a video. You could make arguments against a lot of awards, right? You can go as far back as the 50s, and you can be like, well, Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 and 20 and didn't win MVP. I think that was right. The year that he averaged 50 and 20, didn't he not win because Bill Russell won it? Who, it is Bill Russell. If you're going to lose to anybody, one of the greatest players of all time is not a bad option. Anyway, now we're going on to the third and final award that we're going to be talking about today, which is the 2013 Defensive Player of the Year. LeBron and Marc Gasol had they had a debate, but that makes it sound like they were literally debating against each other. But both of them had a very good case to win this award, right? LeBron James, this is at his defensive peak. He was absolutely insane, right? One of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. I think that you could say that his peak was in Miami because of that, or I'd say he was slightly more athletic in Cleveland, but he still had that athletic burst, some of the greatest athleticism of all time, and he was a more, you know, fleshed out player than he became, or than he was in Cleveland in the first stint. Obviously, in the second stint, he showed a little bit more of that. But LeBron this year, we're just going to focus mainly on the defensive stats here, just because it doesn't make sense really to include points per game. If defensive stats included points per game, then LeBron would have won a lot of Defensive Player of the Years. Now, LeBron, yeah, of course, advanced stats, a lot of those can be... He didn't lead in defensive win shares, defensive box plus minus. He didn't lead in much of the defensive advanced stats. He led in a lot of the other advanced stats. He averaged 1.6 steals per game, 0.8 blocks per game, and 7.6 rebounds. I was looking at per 36. He played more than that. 1.7 steals per game, big difference there, 0.1. 0.9 blocks per game, and then 8 rebounds, flat. Those are great defensive stats. And then you also look at just his ability as a defensive playmaker. You look at his ability to guard sort of 1 through 5. I don't think he can consistently... sort of 1 through 5, right? Like, would I consistently trust him to guard that 1 or that 5? Maybe not, but honestly, maybe. Like, it depends on your matchup, obviously. But that defensive versatility is something you don't see in players a whole lot. The Heat, as a team, were a really solid defensive team. They were 9th, which isn't incredible, but it's not bad at all, right? You look at that, and you can, like, that is a Defensive Player of the Year caliber season. The difference is the Grizzlies were the second best defense in the league, and Marc Gasol put up some really solid defensive numbers as well. He averaged a steal per game, which he's a big man. He doesn't need to average as many steals, and 1.7 blocks, which are both really solid defensive stats. Right? Then you look at those advanced stats, and he doesn't put up anything insane. He puts up the best defensive box plus minus in the league, so that's pretty solid. But then his advanced stats are just slightly better than LeBron's in terms of the defensive aspect. Now, obviously, everything else, LeBron is better. I think people sometimes tend to forget that the better player is not necessarily the one more deserving of an award. And if you're looking at LeBron, there's not, like, he's better overall, but I don't know if he's necessarily a better defender. I think Marc Gasol had a really solid defensive season this year. I think the Grizzlies had a better defensive season than the Heat. And I think a lot of the value of LeBron James did come from that offensive game, right? And I think the reason the Heat were dangerous was more that offense than that defense. Marc Gasol and the Grizzlies, they had the 17th best offense in the league, ended up going to the conference finals as the 5 seed because of that defense, because of that second best defense in the league. They were a gritty team. They fought, and Marc Gasol was a big part of that. And I get they also had Tony Allen, who's an incredible defender, but I think Marc Gasol just deserves a lot of credit for that defense and for putting up great numbers. So I would give this award to Marc Gasol. I think that he did have the better defensive season this year. Plus, he pulled in more rebounds, because he's a big man. So he's finished. Like, rim protection is so valuable. And I just think it's difficult for me to look at a guy who, like LeBron, he's more of a wing, he's more of a forward than a rim protector. And I think it's difficult for me to say, when he's surrounded by other really good defensive players as well, that he is the most valuable defensive player in the league, when I think that rim protection as a whole is just more valuable. And Marc Gasol provided that. So I think I would give this one to Marc. And the people who debate and say, well, but Marc Gasol wasn't even first team all defense. How can he win the MVP award? How is LeBron going to? Well, I think that's just the fault of the voters. The fault of the voters is he should have made first team all defense. He should have been the first ballot, he should have been the first player on there because he was the defensive player of the year that year. It's ridiculous that he didn't make it, by the way. So I don't think that you can say, well, but he did, like, because if by that logic, you could say from the Marc Gasol standpoint, you could be like, well, LeBron won Defensive Player of the Year and was on first team, but or LeBron didn't win Defensive Player of the Year and was on first team, and I won Defensive Player of the Year and was on second team. So really, we should trade places. Like that logic doesn't make sense. Really, both of them should have been all defensive first team. And I think Marc Gasol should have won that MVP. I just think that team defense was better. I think he was more impactful on that team defense than LeBron was. Which, no disrespect to LeBron, it was still an incredible defensive season. And I don't mean any of these guys disrespect by saying that they shouldn't win the award that they either won or didn't win. Or I don't even mean disrespect by including them in this debate. The fact is, there are just so many great players in the world. And the fact that you're at all top three means you're one of the greatest players in the world. Congratulations to you. Rookie of the year, it's a little different, but still, that means you're one of the best rookies in the NBA. That's not easy to do. So I do really just mean to respect all these guys. Like, they should get tons of respect for even being in these debates. And the guys who I think should win these debates should feel even more respected because my opinion is valuable. As future commissioner of the NBA, my opinion is valuable. But those are the three awards that I had. I am going to talk just a little bit about why I think people don't like Nash winning his MVP awards. Like I said before, it's not that they think he didn't deserve it. Well, they think that. But it's not just that. It's also like literally that they don't like him winning that award. Right? Sorry, I had to adjust a little bit. But it's not that like they're like, oh, well, I think this guy should have won instead, despite the fact that Nash had a great season. They're like, Nash, there's no way he should have won that. A highway robbery. I think the thing is that a lot of people look a lot. First of all, there are box score watchers, and it's difficult for me to not box score watch for these years because I was not alive. Well, I was alive for the Marc Gasol at LeBron one. I was 5. But I do think it's difficult to not box score watch. Now, the reason that I can say with some degree of certainty about the value of these players is because I've gone back and I've watched their tape and I've listened to people who actually did watch them, and I've learned a lot about these players, and I take pride in that. But I do think that it can be difficult for people to recognize Nash's value because it doesn't show up right on that box score sheet, right? You look at the points per game, they don't jump off the page. The assists are absolutely incredible. The defensive and rebounding stats don't look great because he's a small, not really defensive, oriented guard. I just think that it is difficult for people to see his case when his stats look the worst of, 3 options, right? I think the difficult thing to recognize is that he impacted that team so much, and he was such a great floor general, and he was such a great leader, and he was just such a creative, efficient player. Like, the efficiency is insane. Like, I can never believe just how efficient Steve Nash was, and I really like Steve Nash as a player, so I could be slightly biased here, like when I talk about Steve Nash, because I really do like Steve Nash as a player. I hated him as a coach, but I loved him, or I didn't really watch him play, but I do love him as a player. And I think it is, it's unfortunate that people just look at the stats and immediately discount him at all. And I'll see people debating the MVP and they just bring up stats. And I'm like, well, what about this other stuff? What about the fact that he was missing the second best player on that team in Amari Stoudemire, and they were still the second best team in the league? That's something to look at. That's value, right? That's value to be able to adapt. And also, I just think that there's kind of a bias against pass first players. Not on purpose. I just think that people, they love their scoring, they love their highlights, right? That's why I think Kyrie Irving gets put in a lot of debates that he shouldn't, right? The Chris Paul versus Kyrie Irving debate that was raging a month ago on social media, that shouldn't be a debate. When right now it's pretty easily Kyrie Irving, but Chris Paul is significantly older. When you're looking at the all-time players, both as they're at their peak and just as an all-time total resume, Chris Paul is the better player, right? He is pretty easily the better player. And I just don't think that Kyrie Irving should be put in those debates. And I love Kyrie Irving. I have a Kyrie Irving jersey because, he did play for the Nets. I really like Kyrie Irving. But I just think people don't recognize just how much value passing brings and how much value smart playmaking brings. So when there's guys like Steve Nash and Chris Paul, these incredible playmaking guards, they sometimes don't get their shine because people can't recognize just how valuable that is to a system. You don't recognize just how great pass first point guards are until they're not in the game and your offense seems to fall apart. Right, and then you look at a guy like a Tyrese Halliburton from this past year. He's one of the few pass first point guards that left, right? And I just think it's difficult for people to look at that. And I think Halliburton started to really earn people's respect in the playoffs because he had an incredible playoff run. But I do think that it's unfortunate that archetype of player just kind of goes down the drain, right? And especially when contrasted with more popular players like LeBron and Kobe, two of the most popular players of all time, right? Maybe the two, besides Jordan, most popular players of all time. Like, Steve Nash doesn't have that star power, but he should. He should. And I don't like the bias against, the unintentional bias against pass first point guards. The only ones who's really immune to that is Rajon Rondo. People love Rondo. They really do, which I can respect. Rondo was great. But yeah, those are my takes on all of those award debates. I thought that was pretty fun to make. I thought it was pretty fun to think about. Fun to go back, do some historical stuff. We don't always get to do that, especially once the season starts up again. It's a lot more, it's a lot more current focused. But that's all I've got for today. Once again, Just Talk Hoops on Instagram if you want to debate, talk about anything, whatever you want to talk about. I'm always there. Then title-runners.net just got a new article out earlier this week about the Nets rookies, who I've talked a little bit about on this pod. But if you really want to see me dive deep into that analysis, go read it. That was a really fun one to write, especially as a Nets fan. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys have a great week, whatever you may be doing. If you're at school, you're at work, you're just chilling out. Whatever you're doing, I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you next time.